not quite the king of preparedness, but he may get there. What are you doing?
I am a prince, yes.
A prince.
Yes, but I'm afraid I
Yes.
can't speak to you, Jeff, until you text me your vaccine passport. I'm afraid it's forbidden to speak to somebody that doesn't have one.
Hey, gonna have a long wait, my friend.
What, you think that's not coming?
No. I think the New Zealand police. Let me find this. Hold on. New Zealand police commissioner refuses to enforce vaccine passport mandate. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, good.
Right?
Good. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
quite a few police
First,
forces.
first good news out of Australia.
Yeah.
Can't remember. It's been many months, many
Yeah.
months.
Yeah, no, it's frightening what's going on in Australia. I think we should invade Australia and liberate them. I mean, we did that for the the French and the Polish, and it wasn't as bad for them as it is for the Australians. So let's get
Uh,
the troops and invade Australia and liberate them from their government.
I think it would be a noble event, and it would go down in history as being proper, moral, geopolitically correct. I
Hmm.
don't think anyone would hold us in any way accountable in a negative sense.
Yeah, sure.
I agree.
We've nuked countries for less than what's going on in Australia.
Totally right.
Anyways, Jeff, I don't know.
All right.
Did you get my memo about what we should talk about tonight?
Uh, yes.
Did you want to talk about that?
Sure. Let's go to it.
Okay,
Yeah, go right ahead.
the first thing is that everybody on the West Coast should learn six simple words, and they are 不要开枪，我是朋友. Because this is going to be very important coming up for the future, especially on the West
Uh-huh.
Coast. And what that is Mandarin for don't shoot, I'm a friend.
Yeah, I got it. I
Yeah,
got it.
不要开枪，我是朋友. Because, I think we're going to be at war with China. I really do. In my book, The Art of Urban Survival, when I wrote a section called Surviving War, and it says signs of impending war. Before war breaks out, there are several social changes that can act as indicators of approaching war. And all those social indicators are taking place in China. Increased
Hmm.
patriotism, increased militarism, and of course that
Oh, yeah.
Xi Jing.
Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Increased communist patriotism.
Oh,
These
yeah.
people really buy into that stuff.
Oh, well, listen, they've been under communism for 80 years now. 80,
Well,
70,
yeah, that's right.
1948. How
75
long?
years.
Yeah, 75 years, something like that. Listen, that's like four generations, three and a half, four generations of communist
They know
propaganda.
nothing else. Right.
And communism rips the soul out of people. And after three generations, listen, my first wife was Chinese. Everybody knows I've lived in China, I've lived in Taiwan and Hong Kong, and I've traveled extensively through mainland China, 中国大陆, and I even had state dinner with with the mayor of Beijing and the mayor of Shanghai. So I got to see, all these people up close. Oh, by the way, my picture is on the cover, or was on the cover, of the People's Daily and the Shanghai Business Journal. So I've been around over there.
I hope you have copies of that.
I do. I,
That's pretty amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I know it's pretty amazing. I'm sort of like Forrest Gump, except with a slightly higher IQ.
Yeah.
I find myself in these situations. I don't know how the hell I got there, but I always seem to be somewhere like in the background of something famous going on, and that there's me in the background. They're watching it. So I know China and what they have been doing, and I still continue to follow what takes place in China. I follow a lot of vloggers that live there, expats, and this all started quite a long time ago already, about 6 years ago. The anti foreigner campaign in China started, well, probably maybe 10 years ago, and it's really ramped up in the last 5 years. But the official state newspapers and media have been demonizing the West, especially America and Australia. They've got it in for Australia for some reason, and they have it in for America. And the propaganda, the anti-foreign propaganda, is just outrageous. It's atrocious. I mean, if we were to print that kind of those kind of stories and those op-ed pieces here in America,
Right.
things like
Right.
China is evil, is our enemy, China has been infiltrating us, China has been attacking us with cyber weapons, China's out to destroy us. That's what they're saying about America in their public media, and they've been saying it day after day for the last 5 years. It's very scary. And then you add to it, when I wrote my book, The Art of Urban Survival, the increased patriotism. Now we know that Xi Jinping has reinstated the kind of programming for the school children. They have to go through the whole communist indoctrination programming that dates back to the 1960s, dates back to the Cultural Revolution.
Right.
They're being indoctrinated all over again. This is like Stalinist era type of communist indoctrination. They've reinstated
Well,
that.
there's something very, very demonic about arch communism. It's not. We don't have to play the Christian label game or anything like that. It's just not human.
No, it's not.
It's a whole different psychosis of humanity. And I mean that in the best sense of the term, because humanity is psychotic.
Yes, I agree.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
So, well, listen, I've always said that China is the ace up the sleeve of the New World Order. You have to understand that the same people that control the Federal Reserve are the ones that control China. China is not controlled by Chinese. China is controlled by the tribe. Let's face it, that's who's controlling them. And China, throughout its history, has never been expansionist. As a matter of fact, they've been the reverse. That's why they built the wall. They want to hide behind the wall, leave me alone, don't let anybody come in.
That's quite an historic statement, and your point is well taken. Yeah, I wonder how much of that's still left, though, at the bedrock of their national psychology.
Well, 75 years of programming, 75 years of communist indoctrination and soul sucking. Now, because, again, the propaganda. I mean, you got Xi Jinping reviewing the troops and telling them, prepare for war. We will smash America against the Great Wall of Steel. Come on. Can you imagine any other national leader in the world speaking like that wouldn't immediately been chastised by the entire world, by the UN?
Yeah.
Yeah. But China gets away with it. Well, why does China get away with this? This is one thing that you got to think about, because China gets away with everything. They get away with organ harvesting. They get away with internment camps. They get away with genocide. Look what happened to Hong Kong. I liked Hong Kong. I loved Hong Kong. I lived there for a while. And I remember when they were going to turn it over, 1999, and it was going to be, one country, two states. Well, how long did that last? And look what they did to the protesters. I was in Taiwan during the Tiananmen Square massacre, and we got the live feed because Taiwan media did not edit the live feed that was coming out of China at the time. So I watched it all live at the time. And years later, when I went back in 2000, I was in Beijing and I was in Tiananmen Square, and I was speaking to the people that were there, and I asked them about the Tiananmen Square massacre. And they said that they don't know how many people died, but afterwards they had to bring in bulldozers to scrape the coagulated blood off the pavement, which had accumulated to a depth of at least a foot. I mean, you had a foot
Wow.
deep coagulated blood. That's how many people they
Wow.
killed. They ran them
Wow.
over with tanks. We see the
Hmm.
famous clip about the one guy standing in front of the tanks, and they
Yeah.
stopped, and he was a great hero. I like that clip. Great, good. Stand up in front of the tank. Of course, he disappeared immediately afterwards. Uh, the secret security hustled him off. Never seen again. We know what
Never
happened
to
to
be
him.
seen again.
Bullet in
Wow.
the back of the head. We already know that. But the people that had protested, they were slaughtered mercilessly. Unarmed people. They came in with tanks. They opened up with machine guns. And those that were wounded and were lying on the pavement, they got run over by the tanks. So that's how communist Chinese deals with peaceful protests. And yet, the world is not an outraged, up in arms, outraged at the behavior of China. They get away with it. The media isn't destroying them. Why? Why do we give them so many breaks? Because China is the new world order.
Got. But China isn't the end of the ladder. We got to remember that they're not the top rung.
Mm-mm,
They're
mm-mm.
being controlled. That the planet's being controlled by a consciousness, some of which I think seriously is off planet.
I think so too.
So
Yeah.
they're not number one.
No,
They're
no,
up
they're
there.
just useful idiots, of course. They're just a tool.
Right.
I mean, and that's one of the reasons. Listen, the powers that be have been attacking China for 200 years. People don't know what really went on in there. I mean, it started way back during the Taiping Rebellion, which was the weirdest thing. It was also the most destructive civil war in history, with an estimated upward of 20 million people dead. And it was so bizarre. There was this peasant, he was a Hakka, and he went around claiming to be the reincarnated brother of Jesus Christ. And he got this huge following. Listen, it was astroturf. Don't tell me nothing. Because the Chinese at that time, they weren't Christians. Yeah, there was a few missions over there. They may have converted a few thousand Chinese to Christianity, but they were not Christian. Why would half the country join this guy in a revolution? And then
Yeah.
they,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Look, I smell the
Sure.
same, the usual suspects. You know them by their fruits, I believe is the expression from the Bible. And boy, do I smell a stinker with that one. I can't find out the truth about it. But come on. And also, a Hakka, by the way, is often called the Jews of China. So suddenly he
Hmm.
gets into power, and you know what he
Hmm.
institutes? Communism, but the lunatic left-wing social justice network communism. I mean, these people were insane. Imagine if Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez suddenly became king of America, right? And she made herself queen of the West, and then all the other people in that group there, that Elon Oldmar and all those lunatics, and they all
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
designated
Yeah.
themselves Queen of the West, Queen of the North, Queen of the South. They had this big communist, everything was made public, and they made it like a communist regime out of it, and they all went around, and they were like, it was like Caligula mixed with Nancy Pelosi mixed with, these were lunatics, and they took over 3/4 of China and nearly completely destroyed China. And you know who saved them? It was a coalition of American and British
Yeah.
troops. I don't know if you ever seen that movie Cartoon with Charleston Heston.
Oh, it's a long time ago.
It was a
A
great
long
movie,
time
right?
ago.
Where he's fighting the
I don't
Mahdi.
remember.
He's
Yeah.
fighting the Mahdi in Egypt, and
Well, this was kind of another one like, how about Lawrence of Arabia? Right?
exactly, it was like a Lawrence of Arabia. It was a great movie. I really liked it. But there's one scene in the movie where he goes to meet the Mahdi, who I believe was
Hmm.
played by Sir Laurence Olivier, and
I think you might be right.
yeah, and
Yeah.
he presented him with a silk gown that he said was given to him by the uh, Emperor of China. Well, that's all true because General Gordon was in charge of the foreign coalition that finally wiped out these communist neo Christian lunatics called the Taipings. It was him that did it. So that was, their first incursion, and then their second incursion was to get the entire country addicted to opium. Oh, where have I heard this before, Jeff? Let me see. The tribe infiltrates a country and gets everybody addicted to a drug. The Statler family come to mind. Does OxyContin come to mind? Does fentanyl come to mind? This is what they did in China. Everybody thinks that the
Hmm.
Chinese were opium addicts by nature. Actually, that wasn't true at all. It was because during the trade between China and England, China didn't really want English wool or English pottery. They would only accept silver for their goods. And within a few
Hmm.
years, England was out of silver. So what the British East India Company did was flood China with cheap opium. And within 10 years, half the country was addicted to opium with the usual, social decline, the crime, the violence, the prostitution, the murdering of the babies and the abortions and, all the accompanying ills of a massive drug addicted population was affecting China. Oh, and guess who was behind that? It was a family called the Sassoons.
They were big people. They, history so quickly. Let's phrase it this way: history so quickly walks away from us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could say we walk away from history, and that would be correct as well. I think history actually just is gone and it goes. I think just
Yeah,
packs up and leaves. It wants nothing to do with this.
yeah,
Millennials, Gen Z, uh, I don't think they know how to leave anything behind.
yeah,
There's very little substance there. So it's all how you look at it.
yeah.
Anyway, it's things are not going to improve. And that's a negative statement, but it's a factual statement. Things are not going to improve, and this is now Biden back in 2001, the creeper said, "Going to be a dark winter." He's been saying it again and
Mm-hmm.
again. And the inside word is that October, November, December are indeed going to be a very dark time. And primarily that statement is predicated on the fact that there are probably tens of millions of people who are in the process of dying right now, and yet
Yes.
they don't know it. If you look at their blood under a dark field microscope, you'll see right there, right there, you'll see why they're dying.
Yeah.
It's in the blood. This is a this is a war on the human circulatory system, the immune system, and the blood.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding. It's not getting better.
No. No, I've heard of a lot of people getting sick these days too. Oh, I remember
And they're
last time
getting
we.
sick from the backs.
Yeah, yeah. So, listen, and here's the other final piece in the puzzle, and that is the Canadian government they made a deal with the Chinese to
It's not
allow
a
them.
government, it's a dictatorship.
Well,
Sorry.
I know. I'm trying to speak in terms that the average person
I
still
understand. Go ahead.
recognize, but of course, no. Well, we've been a dictatorship for Canada has been a communist country for 40 years, trust me. I mean, it's been a nanny state for a long, long time. That's why Canadians are weak and pathetic, and they won't stand up
Uh-huh.
and fight for their country. I'm so disgusted by my own countrymen. And, well, I guess if I was an Australian, I'd be pretty disgusted. But at least they're putting up something of a fight. Justin Castro, or I like to call him Damien Castro, the Antichrist from the Omen, Damien. Damien Castro made a deal with the Chinese government that they can station troops in Canada to
Uh-huh.
protect their property. Now, what do you mean by that? What do you mean? Like, who's going to attack Chinese-owned property in Canada that they need to station their own troops
Well,
there?
the tragedy of this all is how does he even get away with saying something that's stupid
Well, I know.
without being laughed
Well,
out of office?
what's wrong with our police department? Our police department protects everybody else's warehouse. Why can't our
Uh,
police department protect the Chinese warehouse? But I'll tell you why.
that's
Be-
right.
I'll tell you why.
Hold,
Because
hold on.
okay,
Tell me why in a minute. Hold
okay,
that thought.
yep,
Take a break. We'll
okay.
come right back. All right, back with Stefan for stomping, and I kind of slugged the conversation tonight, running out of time. So let's finish up with your answer to that question. You were going to give us the punchline.
Okay, yeah. So the question is, why does the Canadian government allow Chinese troops to guard Chinese property in Canada? And here's my theory on this. Take it, with a grain of salt. I'm just speculating. But
Hmm.
I think that China already has a couple of divisions of troops and equipment already in
Well,
America.
that's okay. Now, there's supposedly a couple of divisions in Mexico. Some people say 50,000. I don't look. If they have them there, the American military, the Pentagram knows it, the Canadians know it, the British know it,
Yes,
the
they do.
Russians know
Yeah,
it. Everybody knows it,
that's right.
except the American people,
That's
if
right.
they're there.
I think they're there. But let's but here's the thing. You see, America and Canada, North America has always been insulated from foreign invasion because we have an ocean on either side of the country. Anybody that tried to invade would have a really hard time finding a beachhead on North America. However, now in the last 50 years, look at the number of containers that come into the ports every day. You think every one of those containers are searched? They're not.
Well, no, one out of 100.
One out of 100.
And now, no, I know this. I had customs people on, and now with so many, I don't know, 60, 80 ships. I forget how many are
That's right.
backed up sitting off the port of LA,
Yeah,
and how many containers on each ship? 1,000? I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
But they're going to now be under more pressure to wave them right on through. And let's be
Mm-hmm.
honest, somebody works in customs, they earn their money. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
comes up and meets them and says, "Here, we need you to wave certain containers through here. This next shipload, we don't want you to go looking for much, and here's a little something to help your family." And they give them
Exactly.
$50,000
Sure.
or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. That's all it takes.
That's
That's it.
all it takes, Jeff. And so all these containers come through. Now, these containers can hold what a C 130 Hercules aircraft can hold, which is like 4 tanks, armored personnel carriers, helicopters, somewhat disassembled, anti aircraft missile batteries, and whatever you want in there. So this is what I
Sure.
think has been happening. I bet you, my guess would be, because if I was a psychopath in charge of China and I wanted to destroy America, this is how I would do it. I would infiltrate America. I would use these containers to ship in, hundreds of APCs and tanks and anti-aircraft missile batteries, and of course there's already,
Sam's.
huh?
Yeah.
SAMs, exactly, surface-to-air missiles, and possibly even who knows how many suitcase nukes, right? That could be quickly distributed by agents to various cities throughout the United States. And that's why I think our governments have colluded with the Chinese to allow them to guard their own property. Now, those properties are probably warehouse spaces where they are reassembling their fighter jets. You can smuggle a fighter jet into a container, no problem. You take the wings off and it'll fit in there. And so I think what the reason why they've allowed the troops to guard these facilities is because they're assembling all their military equipment. Now, in Canada, we already have, I don't know, 2 million Chinese immigrants, 10 million. I can't keep track of it anymore. Apparently, all of
It's a
that.
lot.
There's a lot.
And when the bell rings, where are they going to go? They're going to line right up with their own countrymen.
Of
99% of them.
Of course, that's exactly what they do. Listen, I saw this in Taiwan, because Taiwan has a great defensive system. Twice a year they would have a military drill. One was just a air raid siren, and everybody was supposed to get off the street. Okay, fine. Everybody seeks shelter, get off the street. So the air raid sirens would go out. It's just like one of those World War II movies, and everybody would head indoors. But on the second drill, once a year, when the air raid sirens went on, then on top of every apartment building, the kind of structure that you thought was a elevator motor would open up to reveal SAM missile installations. Out of apartment building, underground parking spaces would come, 3 dozen tanks and armored personnel carriers.
Taiwan is armed to the max.
Oh,
You're
yeah, yeah. And, all those traffic circles that have like, a flower garden in the middle of the traffic circle. Well,
I'll call them, wait a minute, a roundabout.
Roundabouts. Yeah, roundabouts, traffic circles. And they would have, usually some kind of like flower pattern or whatever, garden in the middle, a circular garden. Well, that garden is usually raised, about 2 feet above on a concrete kind of platform, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly, all these windows would open up, and machine guns would point out there. So this is how prepared Taiwan is, and that's what they're doing over here. That's why the troops are over here protecting their property, because they don't want U.S. police or Mexican police or Canadian police to accidentally stumble upon their warehouse and see, half a dozen fighter jets being assembled in the warehouse, or 40 tanks being greased up and ready to go. So
Right.
This is what I think they're doing. This is how I would do it. It makes sense because it's impossible to get a beachhead here. You can't, suddenly bring all these ships over and land troops because, well, they're too obvious. They're out in the ocean and we'd blow them out of the water. But if they're already here and they're already distributed throughout California and Oregon and Washington and British Columbia and Baja California, they're already there, distributed. They've already got all their troops, all their tanks, all their ammunition, and now they just need the signal to go ahead. And what are we going to do to defend ourselves? Californians are going to defend themselves against Chinese troops. Are we going to get the military out? Do they have to take off their high heels and skirts first because they had to learn what it feels like to be a woman? Are we going to get the drag queen story hour folks out with the AR-15s to defend America?
They should have that for the troops, the sensitive troops, the tranny troops.
Yeah, we'll get the
drag queen storybook hour.
We'll get the drag queen storybook hour troops out there, and they'll give them a good shit kicking. Look, And look, China's been harassing Taiwan. Now, I lived in Taiwan. I love Taiwan. It's a beautiful country. It's a beautiful island, and I like the Chinese people in Taiwan. I don't like the Chinese people on the mainland.
Oh, they're very different.
They're very different. There was a video not too long ago on YouTube showing a 2-year-old toddler in China being hit by a truck on the street. Now, the 2-year-old toddler is lying on the street, and dozens of people walk
Oh,
past.
right on by.
Walk right
Oh,
on by.
no.
And not only that, the toddler gets run over by a couple of other trucks. Nobody even pulled him
Wow.
off the street. This is what
Wow.
communism does to people. This
That's
is
roadkill.
it's roadkill to them. They don't care. So, mainland Chinese, because they've been so indoctrinated by the Chinese, by the communists. They're horrible people. Not all of them. Not all of them. Listen, I have a few really good friends originally from Shanghai. They know who they are. I talk to them.
Yeah.
But in general, they're not good people. So you think drag queen story hour is going to stand a chance against these people that don't give a flying fluck about anything? You think they're going to stand a
Oh,
chance?
they listen. They would walk right over our hormonally challenged military.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now, considering that mainland China has been threatening Taiwan with over 200 fighter jet incursions into Taiwan airspace, which is provocation. They're hoping that some glitch will go off and Taiwan would launch an anti aircraft missile against one of their fighter jets that are invading their airspace, and that would be all the excuse they would need to launch a full scale attack on Taiwan. Now, the big question is, will America support, follow up on its promises to protect Taiwan? What do you think? With the Biden regime?
He'll be over there on the front lines, just like George Washington.
And if at the same time that mainland China launches its attack on Taiwan, and it'll be bloody, it would be a bloodbath on both sides because Taiwan is dug in. They are, they're armed to the teeth and they are dug in underground everywhere. Every 20 yards is a pillbox, a machine gun pillbox. It would be, they're probably going to use nukes on them. I don't know. It would be a bloodbath either way. But at the same time they do that, suddenly all these warehouse doors open up and Chinese fighter jets and Chinese troops and Chinese tanks roll down the street of Silicon Valley. What do you think is going to happen? America's going to.
Where do you think all these containers are stored? They've got to be strategically stored and in fairly substantial numbers. They wouldn't have one every mile. They would have them stored. So
My guess would be that they've rented warehouses. Listen, I've seen some of the warehouses, like just for Amazon. Have you seen an Amazon warehouse? Oh my God, it's the size of like 20 football fields. It's about 10 stories tall. Uh, you know,
right.
it's amazing. So they're all in
Well,
there.
I can tell you without any question that if we have if we have the will, we certainly have the competence to find out where all these things are. We already know it. We should know it. If we don't know it, then we've been sold out even worse than we thought. These things aren't going to be hideable for that long. They're brought into the country. There are people observing. There are intel specialists that locate aggregations of Costco shipping containers.
Sure,
They know
sure,
where they are. But
absolutely.
what are they going to do anything about it? That's the question.
No, because our own governments are in collusion with the
Right.
communist Chinese. Because all of them, our governments and the communist Chinese, they're all under the control of the central bankers and whatever off-world demonic entities control the tribe and the banks and all that. So they're in collusion with them already. That's why we're not going to hear about it. Of course, do you think all of America's security and surveillance services don't know this? Do you think the Canadian CSIS doesn't know There's, Chinese troops and munitions being stored on in Canadian property, guarded by Chinese troops. Of course they know, but nothing's going to happen because the Canadian government and the American government are all on the side of the communists. China's a communist country, and so that's why we, the people, will not hear about this. It's going to be Red Dawn, Jeff.
Didn't see the movie, but understand the premise. And yeah, Americans with their weapons are going to have to stand up. We don't have RPGs. We have, 223, 5.56 ARs. We've got some AKs and 5.56. And other than that, what do we have? 303 sniper rifles?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, listen, that's enough to capture some of the enemy's munitions. Guerrilla.
That would be obviously the prime objective. Sure.
Yes, yeah. Because guerrilla warfare is, when they in World War II they distributed this stupid handgun. I forget what it was called. It had one shot. It was a 45 caliber. It had one bullet in it, and then you had to unscrew the barrel to reload it.
Well, when was this?
World War
Which
II.
war?
Yeah, they parachuted these pistols.
World War One?
No, World War II. It was called.
A single shot 45?
Yeah, it was made out of sheet metal for the most part. It was all pressed out of sheet metal. It had like a 2-inch barrel, a really short barrel that screwed into it, and you had to pull this plunger back. It was really primitive.
Oh, this was a survival kind of a assassin weapon thing. It wasn't a service revolver.
No. It was parachuted in by the thousands, right? It was just cheap throwaway gun. But the idea was that resistance forces, such as the French resistance, would pick up these, and they would have one shot, and then you get 3 guys, and those 3 guys jump 2 German troops and shoot them in the head with the 45, and then take their guns. Now that you got their guns, you ambush 5 German troops and shoot them in the head, and then you take their guns, and so on
well,
and so on.
I understand the math. I get that.
Yeah.
We should also note, just for the sake of an historical footnote, the AK-47, the basic design was German.
Mm-hmm.
They took it away from the Germans. That would have been the German standard.
The Sturmgewehr or something like that, I believe it was. The Sturmgewehr. Yeah, they stole the German. But well, listen, the Germans had the best uniforms and the best equipment, and the best training, and they've been stealing their technology ever since. Even to this day, they still use old
Correct.
German World War II technology for their munitions. But yeah, the AK-47 was a rip of the Sturmgewehr. But that's how you would do it. So listen, it's good that the Americans are armed, but China's going to win this war, because also the reason America won World War II, and it's not America because everybody else was in the fight too: Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Russia, England, Norway, Denmark. But the reason we won World War II, or America did, was because we had the manufacturing. We could build more tanks and more guns and more bombs faster than anybody in the world. And what kind of manufacturing do we have left now? Yeah, we still have the industrial complex, but it's also the other stuff, the cooking tins and the tents and the uniforms and all. All of that's manufactured in China, for Christ's sakes. Most of our medications, all our antibiotics, are manufactured in China.
And what might they be putting in those antibiotics? mRNA, spike proteins? Who the hell knows?
Who knows? But But listen, I was over there, Jeff, in 2000. I saw. I went to all these, what they called ghost cities. Actually, I wrote an article for the Trends Journal on the ghost cities.
Where did you find those? They're all over in China, right? That's where you were?
Yeah, they're all over in China. Because, I was accompanying a group of venture capitalists from
Uh-huh.
Australia, Nokia, Hong Kong. And so we were given like, the royal treatment. I was a publicist. I was, kind of just there to take notes and provide commentary on Chinese history and culture, that kind of thing. Uh, what they call a white monkey job in China, which is you hire a white guy because it gives you credibility into thinking for the other Chinese to think, oh, well, look, they got Westerners on their payroll, so they must be competent.
Mm.
it was it was
It,
China's version of affirmative action. So that's how I got the job, Jeff. I won't lie. I'd
it's
published my
funny.
I'd
Hmm.
published my book, and so I was, a China expert. But basically, I was an affirmative action hire. But I went all over China with these venture capitalists. And we went to these cities. They built them from the ground up. Everything from schools and hospitals and high-tech modern car manufacturing facilities, uh, uh,
Uh-huh.
and public parks. And, it was all built and monorail systems and built from nothing. And I remember thinking, Jesus, how could they afford all this? How come we don't see this in America, in Canada, where the reason I was in China was because I couldn't find a job in my own goddamn country. So I put my resume up on Craigslist and I got a job in China. That was good paying, I had a lot of fun. Anyways, we went to these ghost cities and there would be, a 40-story office building solely
Yeah.
dedicated right to whatever the industry was, and on the front of each of these buildings was a brass plaque that said donated by Hewlett Packard, donated by Microsoft, donated by what's that other big
Wow. Oh,
it,
interesting.
oh yeah. And again I remember thinking, you know I look back at America, it looks like a third world country in comparison to China. And I remember thinking, why don't all these, IBM, that was the other one, donated by IBM. Why doesn't IBM and Hewlett Packard and all that build a manufacturing city from the ground up in America? Employ Americans. They're American companies. Their market is America. The money they make come from Americans. Why can't they build this in America, for crying out loud? Why did they do this all to China? But now I know, 20 years hindsight, Jeff, this was all
Hmm.
part of the plan. This was
Were
all part.
these ghost cities? Some people have suggested that the construction was shoddy or is shoddy, and
Oh,
the
yeah.
ghost cities in Africa are actually deteriorating
Oh, yeah.
already, even though they've never been used. Did they build them well, or did they build them just for crap?
They built them for crap. It's all for show. They're falling apart right now. They've been falling apart for the
Right,
last 10 years. Um,
right.
Chinese construction techniques are notoriously shoddy because, again, this is communism, right? Communism says, okay, we're going to give you, pile of money, build lots of apartment buildings, and they go, yes, sir. And then what they do is they cut every corner they can. And so the
Right.
concrete is inferior and will crumble after 10 years. The facades, like when it first comes up and it's, fresh coat of paint slapped on everything, looks great. Looks really great. Then you find out that you poke your finger through,
It's true.
you poke your
I've
finger
heard this.
through what do you call it? The
Oh,
siding.
plaster,
Yeah, yeah. And it turns out that it's
whatever.
plaster on top of cardboard.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Wow.
and they are
Well,
literally crumbling. And now look what happened recently. They nuked the controlled demolition to like 15, 20 apartment buildings, brand new apartment buildings. They just
yeah.
demolitioned them because it's garbage. It's notorious. China's notorious for that, for building garbage. They call them tofu bridges, meaning that the bridge is made out of tofu. You know, they're falling apart.
Tofu bridges.
Yeah,
Oh man.
yeah, the
Well, that was
infrastructure is falling
quite
apart.
a fun journey through the Chinese psyche and physical China. Very good.
Well, you're
Very
welcome,
good.
Jeff, but I'm just saying, look, I really think from all the signs and symptoms that we are heading towards war with China and they will win. So get ready, folks.
Wow. All right, amigo. Thank you.
You're
Take
welcome,
care.
Jeff.
We'll
Thank
talk
you.
soon.
Yeah.
Okay, Stefan.
Bye bye,
Good
buddy.
night.
Bye.
Stefan Verstappen, and he'll be with us the first and third Fridays on each month, which is coming up, this Friday. We'll talk to him sooner than we thought.